It was another exciting afternoon on Steve Harvey's talk show, where the energy in the studio was always high, and the audience was always ready for a good laugh. The show was known for its light-hearted conversations, celebrity interviews, and, of course, Steve's witty humor. Steve Harvey, with his signature laugh and commanding presence, had just wrapped up a fun segment with a comedian, and the audience was in stitches, enjoying the playful banter. But as the laughter died down, Steve paused, giving the crew a nod to signal the next segment. The atmosphere was calm but electric with anticipation. Little did anyone know, the next few minutes would change the tone of the show entirely. What was about to happen wasn't a typical laugh-out-loud moment. This was going to be an unexpected, heartfelt, and emotional surprise for both Steve and the audience. The staff, busy behind the scenes, started setting up for what was about to unfold. The studio lights dimmed slightly, and the crowd's noise started to settle. Steve stood at the center of the stage, looking around with that familiar grin, unaware of the emotional twist that awaited him. And then, without any warning, the screen behind him flickered to life, an unexpected video message. Steve's eyes widened slightly, and the audience hushed, wondering who would be making an appearance. But what happened next was something no one expected, not even Steve himself. This wasn't just another celebrity message. It was Keanu Reeves. The audience collectively held its breath, sensing the power of what was to come. As the video began to play, Steve's smile slowly faded into a look of curiosity and surprise. He hadn't been expecting a video message, let alone from someone as legendary as Keanu Reeves. The audience buzzed with excitement, and Steve turned his full attention to the screen, clearly intrigued. On the screen, Keanu Reeves, dressed casually in a simple black shirt with his signature calm, humble demeanor, looked directly at Steve. He smiled warmly, and his voice, soothing and sincere, filled the room. "Hey, Steve," Keanu began, his voice laced with a calmness that immediately drew attention. "I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to take a moment to send you a message, not as an actor, but as someone who's been really inspired by the energy you've shared with the world." Steve's face showed visible confusion, followed by a slight smirk. He was still processing what was happening. But the way Keanu spoke, the warmth, the genuine tone, made it clear that something deeper was unfolding. The audience was completely silent, hanging on to every word. Steve, who usually kept the mood light and full of laughter, found himself in an unusually vulnerable moment as Keanu continued. "I've been following your journey for years, and I've seen how you've impacted so many people with your words of wisdom and your laughter. But more importantly, your kindness and your authenticity. That's something that's hard to come by in our industry, and it's something that's meant a lot to me personally," Keanu said, his expression softening. Steve looked utterly stunned. He hadn't expected anything like this. His body stiffened slightly as Keanu's words seemed to resonate deeply with him. There was no joking, no playful banter, just pure sincerity. Keanu's message continued, "You face challenges in your life, and you've shown the world that no matter where you are or how tough things get, keeping a smile and a kind heart is the best way to move forward. You're a true inspiration, and I just wanted to make sure you know that." Steve sat there, his hands resting on the arm of his chair, his eyes slightly squinted as he tried to process the unexpected sincerity of the message. The audience could feel the shift. What had started as an entertaining show was now turning into something much more intimate and emotional. Keanu ended the message with a final thought that hit Steve even harder. "I'm just honored to know you, Steve. Keep being you, because the world needs more of that." And with that, the screen went black, leaving Steve and the audience in stunned silence. The crowd began to react with soft applause, unsure of how to express what they had just witnessed. For a moment, there was nothing but a heavy silence in the studio. Steve, his heart racing, still trying to grasp what had just happened. As the applause from the audience faded, Steve sat there for a moment, still processing the message. His usual quick wit and confidence had taken a back seat, and he was clearly moved by Keanu's words. But then something even more profound happened. Keanu's message took a deeper turn. The video came back to life, and Keanu, in an unexpected twist, shared a deeply personal story. He spoke of a time in his life when he was struggling with personal loss and feeling adrift in the world. The tone of his voice softened, and Steve, who was initially still trying to regain his composure, leaned forward, as if trying to understand the depth of the message Keanu was about to deliver. "You know, Steve," Keanu said, his eyes now looking directly into the camera with that familiar quiet intensity, "there was a point in my life when I didn't know if I could keep going. I had lost people close to me, and I felt like the weight of everything was too much to bear. Steve, still stunned, listened intently. His usual charm and humor were nowhere to be found. It was clear that Keanu wasn't just speaking from a place of admiration, he was speaking from his own personal experience. Keanu continued, "It was during that time that I found something in your words. I saw you on TV talking about resilience, about finding the strength in tough times, and it struck me. You said something that really hit home for me. It's not about how many times you fall, it's about how many times you get back up." Steve's eyes began to water as Keanu's message sank in. He had often been the one to give others encouragement, to lift people's spirits with his infectious humor. But hearing Keanu speak about his own battles and how Steve's words had helped him was a humbling moment. "It's easy to look at someone and think they've got it all together," Keanu said, his voice a bit quieter now. "But the truth is, we all go through things. The key is finding people who can lift you up when you can't do it yourself, and Steve, you've done that for so many." The audience remained silent, as the emotional weight of Keanu's words became even more profound. The room, which had been filled with the usual noise of a talk show, was now entirely still. Every single person in the studio was absorbing what had been said. Keanu finished the story with a simple yet powerful message. "You may not always see it, but the way you live your life has a ripple effect. And you've been a source of strength for more people than you realize, Steve." Steve, who had been trying to hold it together, was now visibly choked up. He looked down at the floor for a moment, trying to regain some composure, but the emotion was clearly overwhelming. He was moved by the fact that someone as strong and grounded as Keanu could be touched by his own words, and it brought him to tears. This wasn't just about fame or success. It was about the human connection that transcended everything. As the video ended, Steve's voice cracked slightly as he spoke to the audience. "I didn't expect this today, but I'm truly grateful. Man, I can't tell you what this means to me." The audience, still in awe of the genuine exchange that had just taken place, erupted into applause, but Steve remained silent for a few seconds, simply basking in the emotion of the moment. This was a side of him that the public rarely saw, vulnerable, grateful, and humbled. It was a moment that would live on in the hearts of the audience for a long time. The room was heavy with emotion as Steve Harvey, visibly overwhelmed, took a moment to compose himself. The audience, sensing the change in energy, sat in rapt attention, understanding the gravity of the moment. Steve's usual quick wit and infectious laughter were nowhere to be found. Instead, he sat with his hands on his knees, his head slightly lowered, and his shoulders visibly tense as if trying to hold back the tide of emotion that was threatening to overwhelm him. For a man who was known for his larger-than-life personality, seeing him so vulnerable and emotionally moved was a rare sight. Steve wiped his eyes quickly, trying to regain his composure, but the tears were already there. He took a deep breath, his voice trembling slightly as he began to speak, his gratefulness now outweighing any attempts to stay composed. Steve started, but he stopped himself for a moment, trying to find the right words. "I didn't expect that today. I'm sitting here, and I can't even put into words how much that means to me. Keanu, you don't know how much I needed to hear that." His voice cracked with emotion, and for a moment, it seemed like he would break down right there on the stage. He paused again, his eyes glistening, the tears he had been holding back finally making their way down his cheeks. "I've spent my whole career making people laugh, trying to be the guy who lifts others up, who's always got a joke, always got a smile. But, sometimes it's hard to keep up that energy, especially when you're going through your own stuff. And to hear that someone, especially someone like Keanu, was inspired by me, that means everything." Steve's words were raw, honest, and from the heart. The audience, who had always seen him as a confident, larger-than-life figure, was now seeing him as a man, vulnerable, humbled, and touched by a moment of deep connection. "I've always said that life's too short to be fake," Steve continued, wiping his eyes with a tissue. "And right now, I'm just feeling real grateful, real emotional." The audience sat in stunned silence, fully aware that they were witnessing something rare, a side of Steve Harvey that had never been shared so openly before. The moment was not about jokes or laughter, but about the humanity that connected everyone in that room. As Steve sat there, trying to catch his breath and regain control, he let out a small laugh, still a little shaky but genuine. "Y'all, I'm not usually like this. You know me, I'm usually the big loud guy making jokes. But Keanu's words hit me in a way I didn't expect, and it's good to let that real emotion out every once in a while." The audience, seeing Steve's genuine vulnerability, began to clap softly, the applause building as they recognized the honesty and strength it took for him to share such a personal moment. And as Steve wiped away the last of the tears, he looked directly at the camera, a small smile now on his face, and said, "I guess we all need a reminder sometimes, don't we? To just stop and be real." So, man, thank you for that. And to everyone watching, take a moment today to just be grateful for what you have. The emotional tension in the room lifted, replaced by a sense of connection, as Steve's words resonated not only with the audience in the studio, but also with viewers watching from home. As Steve took a deep breath and wiped the last of his tears away, he looked back at the screen, where Keanu's image still lingered for a moment. The words that Keanu had shared earlier were already powerful, but it was now time for the final, most touching part of the message. Keanu's expression softened further, and his voice, though calm and steady, carried a weight of genuine encouragement as he spoke the closing lines. "Steve, you've been through so much in your life, and you've always shown the world that staying true to yourself is what matters most," Keanu said, his voice full of admiration and respect. "The laughter you bring to people's lives isn't just for the moment, it lasts. You make people believe that no matter the struggle, they can keep going. That's real strength. You don't need to say a thing more, because you've already shown what really matters." He paused briefly, looking directly at Steve, who now sat with his hand resting on his heart, still trying to process the emotions swirling inside. Keanu continued, "Keep doing what you do, Steve. Keep making people laugh, but most importantly, keep being the person you are, because it's that authenticity that really counts." As Keanu's message ended, the room was still for a brief moment. Everything seemed to hang in the air. Steve, still overcome with emotion, nodded slowly, as if fully absorbing the weight of Keanu's words. The audience, who had watched the entire exchange unfold, stood in unified silence, the air thick with respect and a deep sense of connection. They were witnessing not just the vulnerability of a beloved TV host, but the strength and kindness, the idea that showing up as yourself, without pretense, was the most powerful thing one could do. Steve finally stood up, his voice now more steady, but still tinged with emotion. "Man, I didn't expect this today. Keanu Reeves, you just gave me a reminder of what's truly important. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know." The studio lights seemed to shine a little brighter as Steve turned toward the audience, his usual humor starting to return, but now layered with something much more profound. Sometimes I'm the guy who has to remind everyone to laugh, to stay positive. But this is a lesson in gratitude. If you don't leave today with something good in your heart, I don't know what to tell you. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. The applause that followed was genuine, not just out of appreciation for Steve's usual antics, but because everyone in that room recognized the depth of the moment. Keanu's words had reached beyond the surface, and Steve had opened up in a way few would have expected. Steve, his voice still a little shaky but strong, looked back toward the screen. "Man, I can't thank you enough. You've done more than just bring me to tears today. You've reminded me of why we do this, to be real with each other." With a final smile, Steve gave the camera a nod. "Thank you, everyone, for letting me share this. Life's too short for anything else." As the applause grew louder, the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just a typical show anymore. It was a moment of connection that would resonate long after the lights went down. And as the show closed, fans across the world would remember the day Steve Harvey wasn't just a talk show host. He was a man moved by the truth, showing that even the most powerful can be touched by a simple message of kindness. After Keanu's message and the profound words of encouragement, Steve sat back down, his mind still racing from the emotions he had just experienced. The studio was now filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just from Steve, but from the entire audience. Steve, who had been a source of joy and laughter for so many, now found himself on the receiving end of something far more impactful. He wiped his eyes once more, trying to regain his composure, but finding it difficult. His voice, though still slightly shaky, now held a new weight, genuine humility. "Y'all, I've been doing this for a long time, but I'll tell you, that hit me like a ton of bricks," Steve said, his hands resting on the desk in front of him, his face soft with emotion. "Keanu Reeves, of all people, just told me things that made me stop and really think. And I'm sitting here thinking, who am I to get this kind of love from someone like him? What did I do to deserve this?" The audience, who had watched this vulnerability unfold, responded with soft applause, not just a polite gesture, a show of support for Steve's raw openness. The atmosphere had changed. It wasn't just a talk show anymore. It had transformed into a deeply personal moment of reflection. Steve leaned forward, his expression more sincere than ever. I've had my share of ups and downs, but hearing Keanu say those words, it's like he lifted a weight off my shoulders. To think that someone I admire so much, someone who's seen the hardships of life, could see something in me that they appreciate, it's a blessing I can't even put into words. He paused, looking out at the audience as if searching for the right words, his emotions threatening to spill over once again. I've always said it's not about what you get, but what you give. And today, I got something that I'll carry with me forever. A reminder that life's real purpose is to give to others, whether it's through laughter, encouragement, or just being present when someone needs you. Steve chuckled softly, wiping his face again, still trying to fight the tears. And here I am, the one who's supposed to be giving y'all a good time. And today, y'all gave me more than I could ever give back. The audience, now fully invested in the emotional journey Steve had just shared, erupted in cheers and applause, giving him the kind of support that he had always freely offered to others. Steve stood up again, his voice filled with resolve, despite the tears still in his eyes. I'm not leaving here today just with a smile. I'm leaving here with something real. So if you're watching right now, just know this. Never underestimate the power of kindness, of taking a moment to appreciate someone and letting them know they matter. Because just like Keanu said, it can make a world of difference. With that, Steve gave a final nod toward the camera, a deep sense of peace settling over him. And I promise you from here on out, I'm going to keep doing the best I can, authentically, and make sure I'm giving back all that love and respect that's been shown to me. The audience stood, applauding not just for the show, but for Steve's raw humanity and the emotional depth he had just shared. This would be a moment that no one would forget, an unforgettable connection made through words of kindness, honesty, and strength. The emotional moment between Steve Harvey and Keanu Reeves quickly spread across social media, taking the internet by storm. Clips of Steve's tearful reaction and Keanu's heartfelt message were shared by fans, celebrities, and influencers alike, sparking a wave of conversations about vulnerability, kindness, and the importance of authentic connections. Hashtags like #RealStrength, #KeanuandSteve, and #BeAuthentic trended globally as fans from all over the world reacted with emotion and support. The video of Steve wiping away tears while listening to Keanu's words reached millions of people, and the responses flooded in from all corners of the globe. One fan tweeted, "Keanu and Steve Harvey just reminded me of what real kindness looks like. The world needs more of this. #RealStrength." Another post read, "We've all been through tough times, but seeing Steve Harvey show real emotion today was a reminder that it's okay to be vulnerable. Thank you, Keanu, for showing the world what true encouragement is." Celebrities also chimed in, with actors like Viola Davis, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Tyler Perry expressing their admiration for the powerful moment. Viola tweeted, "We need more moments like this on TV, where kindness is celebrated and real emotions are shared." Steve Harvey and Keanu Reeves, thank you. The media outlets also picked up the story with headlines like "Steve Harvey and Keanu Reeves' heartfelt exchange takes the internet by storm," and "Keanu Reeves' surprise video message to Steve Harvey leaves fans in tears." The powerful moment also sparked discussions about the mental health benefits of showing vulnerability, especially in the entertainment industry, where performers often feel the pressure to maintain a certain image of strength and composure. Mental health advocates hailed the interaction as an important step toward normalizing emotional expression in public life. Some fans expressed how much they needed to see such a genuine moment. "This is the kind of content we need, not just for entertainment, but to remind us that we're all human, and we all need to be seen and appreciated," wrote one viewer. For Steve Harvey, the response was overwhelming. His public persona had always been larger than life, known for his quick wit and humor. But now, through his emotional exchange with Keanu, he had shown the world something deeper, his heart. The outpouring of love and support from the public didn't stop there. Fans shared their own stories of overcoming hardships and finding strength through vulnerability. The shared experience became an inspiration for many who had always felt that emotions like tears, sadness, and fear were signs of weakness. In an era where people are often disconnected from their true selves due to social pressures, Steve and Keanu had reminded everyone that authenticity and humanity were what truly mattered.